Well, that was my earliest recollection of Foster Polley. We just seen him walk down the street outside of Ream's apartments. And as usual, he was in charge of having to fix something that was broken. How about you, Emily? You have an early memory of Grandpa Polley?
I can't remember. I think it must have been a picture.
A what?
A picture? I can't remember what. When was the first time I said that? Was it our plane ride?
Boy, let's see. It would have been
trip on the plane when we were really little.
One of those trips out to Las Vegas from the east, I guess. When Emily was 3 years old or something like that.
I think that's when
She was 3 before Grandma and Grandpa ever saw her?
No.
Well, Grandma saw her because she was around when she was born, but just
I
after
think
she was
that's
born.
the first time I saw Grandma. But I'd seen pictures before.
So what do you think about when you think of Grandpa?
I think it was Bill Cosby's smile.
Oh,
Grandpa
yeah,
reminds
he
me
does.
of Bill Cosby
He does.
in an unbelievable. Grandpa is very much like Bill Cosby. He's very, I don't know, wise, I guess. I don't know how to say it. I mean, I'll be watching a comedy routine Bill Cosby is doing, and Grandpa is just going through my mind all the time. I just cannot get him out of my mind. His emotions and his speech patterns are amazingly like Grandpa. And it's funny. It's funny.
Well, I picture Grandpa in his white overalls and
So do I, with his tool case.
his tool case, his little pencils he has sticking in the two pockets right there, and
The hammer and his son.
yeah, and the hammer hanging down. And, you know.
That's because every time you
Well,
see
yes,
him,
right.
he has come to our place to fix something or build something.
But yeah, that's right.
Early, I guess, I think it was before we were married. I went out, maybe, I can't remember. I had a terrible memory about whether we were married or not. At the time something happened, you know, quite a few years ago. But we were visiting Jennifer's folks in Las Vegas, and somehow the conversation turned to the house or something. That we were standing outside the house in Las Vegas, and Grandpa said, "Well, I had a salesman come by and say, well, I noticed that your house needs painting, and we're offering a really great deal on painting houses." And Grandpa said, "Well, you know, that just made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. If I think my house needs to be painted, I'll go paint it." I thought, well, you know, there are a lot of people whose house would need to be painted, and they would say, "Yeah, I know it needs to be painted, but I don't want to spend the money," or whatever. But it's not the case. But Grandpa, he knew whether his house needed to be painted or not, and he's the kind of person who, if his house needed to be painted, he would paint the wretched thing, you know. So that was an early recollection of the kind of person we were dealing with here. A man who took very good care of the built environment. And I also remember, Jim Polley will have to forgive me for repeating this, but one day Jim came home after he was working during the summer. I think Jim was in high school, and he had gotten some kind of a summer job. And he came home. It was an unbelievably very hot summer day in Las Vegas, and everyone was half melted. And his dad said something about he had something to do. There was some responsibility around the house or something, and he said, "Well, you're going to have to," or Jim had come home for lunch or something, "You're going to have to do it after work." And Jim said, "After work? I'm not going to be able to do that after work. I'm going to be completely exhausted. I'm not going to have any energy, and I'm not going to have any time." His dad looked at him and said, "Well, I built this house after work." Forgive me for repeating that one, James. It was a good line, though. Okay, turn it off.
Okay, I'm supposed to talk now if I get my kids to stop teasing me. When I think of Dad, there are so many memories and so many things that it's virtually impossible. Of course, then I start to cry, so I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. Dad you've taught so many things, but one of the things that I think of that I have learned from you is integrity. And of all the things that you do, you always seem to do what you feel is right. And as we've talked so much about integrity in young women now, I've learned that integrity is making your actions consistent with your knowledge of right and wrong. And you have done that consistently as long as I've known you. And that's been a tremendous example to me. And I appreciate that. And also your incredible support. You see anyone who is trying, no matter who it is, someone you see who is trying to do their best and is making an effort, you have supported 100%. Did you guys feel that? There's always been all the help, all the support, more than any of us deserved, probably, but that support has been a tremendous blessing. It's just been such a blessing to our lives and to my life personally. And there have been so many times when I really needed you. And you've always been there. And I've always felt like I could come to you. And it's been nice as I've gotten older, because I feel now like, especially you're one of the best friends. And it's nice to grow up and to establish friendship past kidhood. And that's been a tremendous blessing. It's lots of fun. It's always been such fun to have you here. And it just keeps getting better to have you around us. You have to stop now.
As you get older and you have more experience with watching people and their marriages and their families, and I guess I've become a student, an observer of people with their in-laws, the families they marry into. I've just been increasingly grateful for the relationships that we've enjoyed, that I've enjoyed with Jennifer's family, that Jenny's enjoyed with my family. And I'm astonished at the restraint that that our parents and our brothers and sisters and brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law have exercised. And I think about Grandpa and his tremendous generosity and his concern, but at the same time his restraint. We've made our decisions, we've done things, we've raised our children and lived our lives as pretty much as best we could, made our mistakes, made our foolish decisions from time to time. And I don't remember getting any gratuitous or pushy advice from my wife's father. I remember over the years a tremendous amount of support, a lot of patience, very generous expressions of trust and interest. And to a young man raising a family, to a person without a lot of experience in the world, that probably does more than anything else can. I remember the Polleys showing up with a wash machine, which we desperately needed early in our marriage when we were living in a little apartment in Provo. I could tell that Grandpa was very concerned about getting this washing machine, and he wasn't sure whether I would be, offended or bothered by this. And I was very grateful that my wife would have a washing machine. And he told me before he left, I should have called you, Michael, and said, this is what I'd like to do. Is that okay? And that to me was another very telling kind of reaction. Here's a man who's very generous, but who's also very sensitive. And I think you've provided for me a real role model, the kind of behavior that I want to emulate when my children marry and they begin to make their own decisions with their spouses about their lives, about their own children, families, and careers. And I hope I can exercise the same kind of restraint that you've exercised tonight. I hope I can be as generous and as patient as you've been. And I want you to know that I really appreciate that. And I love and respect you for the example that you set. Jennifer's comments about your integrity are so great. I think that for you, Grandpa, integrity and honest reactions and choices have always been just a matter of fact in your life. And I'm sure that over the years, as you've seen people in and out of the church make decisions that were dishonest, it's been very difficult for you to just watch that happen, because for you, that's never been an option. Again, your integrity is really something for the family to treasure, and we want you to know that we do.
Ah, yes, the Polley gene pool. Feeding at the moment.
Turn it on.
Oh, no. You think I'd record you in such a heinous state? Alive and kicking.
Turn it on. Turn it on.
I'm sorry, I mean, I inherited the Polley cruelty.